to this masterclass of the program Critical Media Studies. I am Panos Kompациaris. I'm the academic supervisor of the program. And so for this masterclass today, we decided to have a guest speaker who is actually one of our visiting faculty. So instead of us or someone from the School of Media of Higher School of Economics giving this masterclass, this lecture, we decided to bring someone from our guest lecturers so that you get a better idea about let's say, the international collaborations we are pursuing in this program. So as you all know, this master program, the duration of the program is for 2 years. And I guess we can start with Nello Barile, and then if we have any questions about the program, we can answer them. We can address them later. So just a very few words about our speaker. So Nello Barile is a professor at the University of Milan, and he also teaches at the Franklin University in Switzerland. And his research interests include sociology of media and communication, culture, fashion, and consumption. And he's the author of numerous books, articles, and short essays in Italy, as well as in France, in Germany, Brazil, and the USA. At the moment, Professor Barile is investigating the relationships between culture, power, and emerging media. And his talk today is titled Communication in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So I guess, Nello, the floor is yours. I guess you are able to share your PowerPoint if you have one.
Yep. Okay. So today I decided to start with cyberpunk, and post-humanism.
And we're not able to hear you, Nello. I don't know, perhaps it's the microphone. You may want to unmute yourself.
I don't know, my microphone, I mean, it's on. Let me see. Maybe, can you try to unmute?
We cannot hear you.
Let me check with
just a moment. Hello?
Try to unmute. But mine is,
okay, so
see if I can, yeah, if you can do it.
Let me, you seem to be unmuted from here. So, okay, so the rest of the people can hear you. Okay, so let's then continue like that.
Okay, I can, okay. So, yeah, good afternoon. It's a pleasure. Thanks to Professor Компациарис for the invitation. And today I will talk about, because today we have 2 lessons, if I'm not wrong. So there is, a discussion about Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is my topic, is the topic that I'm exploring in this period. And today I will introduce the Fourth Industrial Revolution, going back to the evolution of cyberpunk culture and, post-humanism and subculture connected to both, to post-humanism and cyberpunk. And then in the next lesson, I will introduce the framework of the Fourth Industrial Revolution to show you more, let's say, more technical and practical aspect of the digital innovation, let's say. So today we start with this sort of recognition on the also historical recognition, also philosophical recognition, sociological recognition. It's all about the idea of future, because I'm thinking about a book in which I'm gonna talk about the future. My next book will be about the future, a sociology of the future, especially after pandemic. This is no, something that I mean, probably there will be a a strong separation between the past and our next idea of future. So in my book, I will make a sort of before the sociology of the future, I will also make a sort of archaeology of the future. So how the future were perceived in the previous ages, in the previous, especially in the development of the, let's say, the post-industrial society. Okay, so let's go back to the, this is just a very short, we can call it diagram, we can call it, as considering the main protagonist of different periods. We can talk about the pre-industrial stage of pre-industrial Pano, can you hear me or?
Yes,
we can.
Yes, thank you.
So in the pre-industrial stage, we know that the protagonist was like the monster. If we think about also the golem as a sort of a mythological figure, and so this idea of like the monster was the protagonist, also trying to connect different feelings, about I mean, also different fears, and the golem was a protector of a specific people, specific, and in this case, then we also can talk about, for instance, Frankenstein is on the border between the pre-industrial society and the industrial society as a monster which is closer to the like inorganic sensibility, something that has been called as a sex, also like a sex appeal of inorganic, also going back to Ben. And then we have the robot, which is already a protagonist of the industrial revolution, because in the industrial revolution we got many movies about I mean, I can quote Metropolis, which is probably the like the epic representation of the industrial society. And there is an android in Metropolis, Fritz Lang Metropolis, but there are also funny movies. For instance, here there is Me and Catherine, like, which is Italian movie made by a comedian, and it's this guy fall in love with the robot, a robot that is a housekeeper, and then they basically they got married, and so this idea of the mechanical bride, that was also a title of very popular Marshall McLuhan book, the mechanical bride as the bride of the as a representation, one of the main representation of industrial society. And then when we talk about post-industrial, we see that I mean, in the post-industrial society, there is a shift from robots to the cyborg, the idea of cyborg. Why? Because the post-industrial society is a society based on information, is based on virtualization, is based on networks, is based on the, let's say, dematerialization of economy, exchanges, and so on. And so the protagonist is not the robot anymore, it becomes a cyborg. The big question is, do you think we are still in a post-industrial society or not? What do you think?
That's like the $1 million question.
It's a bit complicated, I know. But the answer is that there are many scholars saying that we are not anymore in a post-industrial society, even if we are still using computers, we use networks, we use chips, we use so many things, but we are in a more advanced type of society that it's called fourth industrial society. And fourth industrial society is different from the post-industrial because there is we can say because the material, there is a new materialism, we can say, because the matter comes back. In the post-industrial society, there was a celebration of virtualization, of digital communication, and so on. In the fourth industrial society, atoms come back. And atoms are not just atoms, are atoms integrated with information. So bit and atoms together, the integration between these two ontological dimensions are of the fourth industrial revolution, no, of the fourth industrial society. But we can talk about this next time. In as I said, in the next class, I will explain in a better way the dynamic of the fourth industrial revolution. And you know, there are many technologies like no, augmented reality, the geolocalization, emotional robotics. So also robotics coming back, but not the same robotics of the industrial revolution. You know, robots producing things in the factories. Now we have new robots that are part of our world, no, our life, our daily life, our body, our emotional robotics. This is the new trend of the fourth industrial revolution. And then we can talk about also mobile phone and smartphone, because they are a way to automate our daily life. So basically we interact with the intangible robots, for instance, also recommendation systems, artificial intelligence, and so on. You know, so we will see how different innovations are changing our daily life, are colonizing our daily life, if you think about the platforms and the platform society. And so this is a new trend. Okay, so the first concept that Panos asked me to talk about is the post-human. No, this is a huge topic. I cannot explain in the details all the theories about post-humanism, but we can say, I mean, 100% that everything comes from the reflection of Michel Foucault. I don't know if you heard about, you probably heard about this French philosopher before, and there are many interpretations of Foucault, and there are many. From my personal point of view, the most beautiful book, something that is not quoted by especially many postmodernists, many gender theorists, many like expert in gender studies, post-colonial studies. It's one of the first book is The Order of Things, no, the mot and les choses. It's The Order of Things, no, which is a beautiful book about the evolution of the relationship between words and things, between concepts and reality, in something that Foucault calls the classic age or the classic stage. There is someone joining, yeah. No, the classic age or the classic stage. Anyway, in this book, which is not, Foucault is very popular for this archaeology of knowledge. No, his approach is called archaeology of knowledge. In this book, more than archaeology, we can talk about geology, because the history of knowledge is considered as a sort of evolution between, I mean, friction between different, no, how can I say in English, like planktons, no? And the friction between plankton makes, I mean, creates something new, produces something new, no? For instance, from the classical age to the modern age. And then the protagonist of the modern age is the human, is the man as no, the subject of the progress of the modern development, as the self-made man, as the bourgeois also, no, like the subject of the bourgeois society is also no, so it's also rational, is no, self-directed. And this figure, this idea, basically, this is why Foucault is a genius, because he understood many years ago in the 60s, 1960s, that this was just an invention. Something that for us is a natural no, process, is an object, something that we can touch. No, we are subjects. We are no, like very defined and separated from the others, and we have some particular features. From Michel Foucault point of view, this was just an invention, and the man is just a recent invention. It is something created by culture. It is something created by language, of course. And this is why, if it's a recent invention, basically it's an invention going back to the humanism and the Renaissance. You know, this is when the idea, modern idea of man was created. Then this is also a sort of, I mean, we can think about an obsolescence of the idea of man. So basically, as what man was created by a specific culture, then it can disappear, and it will disappear. If you see here, archaeology of of thought. It's a long text, sorry, but if you just see the underlying part, then one can certainly wager that man would be erased like a face drawn in sand at the edge of the sea. This is a destiny of man, of the idea of, not like modern idea of man, the idea, as I say, rational, of a rational subject driving the history, creating, transforming the environment, because of course here we have also an like environmentalist issue. Change the Anthropocene is of course also not part of the modern man is the protagonist of the Anthropocene, and we know that the Anthropocene is not necessarily a good thing. So I'm not an environmentalist, but so it's beautiful, the idea of a face drawn in the sand, at the border, at the edge of the sea, and this is very similar to what if you, I don't know if you watch this movie, the first Blade Runner from 1982, Ridley Scott movie. You probably watched the second Blade Runner. Did you watch Blade Runner 2049 with Ryan Gosling? I'm sure you watched it, you know it. Did you watch it?
Watched it.
Yeah, okay, so we can talk about it later. And here, the first Blade Runner, it is exactly the same idea of Michel Foucault. In this case, we don't have the face of the man drawn on the sand, near the sea. In this case, we have tears in the rain. All this moment that we used to live, we will be washed away like teardrops in the rain. It's the same idea, it's the same principle. It's not the sea and the sand, it's the rain and teardrops. Teardrops completely washed away by the rain. And I don't show you the final first because I don't want to spoil it, but it's, I mean, of course you should watch this movie because it's really a fundamental movie also to understand the post-human condition. But in the movie, you basically see the Dakar, the detective, engaged to hired to kill the replicants, and this guy basically is like turning himself into a sort of non-human, or like, because he's not feeling. No, he has not feelings anymore. Like, searching for, hunting the replicants is like becoming like a replicant. And on the other side, like a circle, like in a circular process, you see that replicants that are basically like products, like goods, like industrial commodities, because they have an expiring date. They know exactly the moment when they are going to die. So they are like, they are obsolete, or the obsolescence, like the product in the market, they become more human. So there is a process of humanization on the side of replicants. They are struggling to be human. They want to live more than their expiring date. And on the other side, you see the humans becoming like, not human anymore, like unemotional and becoming like replicants, basically, artificial like replicants. So this is why Blade Runner, the first Blade Runner, is one of the Bible of the post-human reflection, and we see many influences on the sci-fi, from the 82 to 1982. You can see so many, all the sci-fi, like dystopian movies of the 90s and 2000 are somehow inspired by Blade Runner. There is also another one, Videodrome, but I don't think we got time to reflect on Videodrome. Cronenberg's Videodrome. And then just to say that, in the 80s, we have this like, reflection on post-humanism, but then it became even more stronger and more diffuse and more popular in the 90s, because in the 90s we see that even art becomes post-human. Post-human is a specific art scene, and there are many performers like Stellarc or also Orlan, the French performer, that are working, changing completely the notion of art. In this case, Professor Kompациaris probably can help you more than me, because he's much more than me into art. But in this case, the idea is that in the post-human in the 90s is still philosophical and artistic reflection. So it's like a big systematic reflection on. And in fact, you see, Stellarc, he becomes a sort of cyborg with his third arm, bionic and cybernetic arm that can be moved it can be connected also online and moved by other people connected online, also community, also. So there is an interesting interaction between his body and the virtual world. And while Orlan is even more impressive, because we go back to the category of monster. So in this case, we see that like the post-human is also able to go back to the past, to the ancient time, it's like archaic. In fact, also postmodernism in the 90s, if we think about Michel Maffesoli, is a neo-archaic or neo-archaism. So the idea of that the future is like going back to the past, bringing some images or ideals, or in this case, the monster, the hybrid, there are also many Greek mythological monsters, similar to, and basically Orlan is using the plastic surgery for the opposite reason of why the reason why plastic surgery is famous in the capitalistic and post-industrial society. The idea of creating a new, diffusing a new idea of beauty, while from Orlan's point of view, the aim is completely the opposite. Not aligning herself to a standard idea of beauty, but trying to be a monster, trying to modify her body using plastic surgery, and trying to become a monster. And in fact, she's similar to a monster. I don't know if you if you agree with this. And the art work is the performance is the surgery. The video of the plastic surgery with the surgeon cutting her face and all doing the things. And okay, so just to tell you about there are more examples. Also, again, Stellarc, you see here there is also the representation of with the circuit, with also the camera and the connectivity and so on. But this is not too interesting for. And you see here, this is a surgery, very disgusting, and with grape, it's like a dead nature, the notion of dead nature, which is even more scary, in this case, the comparison between dead nature and the body. Okay, how many? What time we finish? Just to know if I should cut something. I think
in around 30 minutes, I guess.
Okay, I think we can. This is posthumanism and something that we discover. It is called the Californian ideology. There is an encounter basically between posthumanism and the so-called Californian ideology. In fact, Kevin Kelly, Out of Control, we see that there are many points here in which this post-human vision is developed. As we make our machine and institution more complex, we have to make them more biological in order to manage them. So this idea that machines are not just cold devices, but they will be integrated. They become biological. They will be integrated in our body. No, we are all cyborgs, of course, because we are already modified according also to Marshall McLuhan in the 60s. So many guys that I quote in this lecture, no, they are like inspired by Marshall McLuhan. No, we are technology is an extension of our body, and we are modified continuously by technology. No, the most important force in technology will be the artificial evolution. So the artificial evolution, considering also artificial intelligence, organic life is the ultimate technology. No, this is a clear post-human conception. It's not just about computers and sensors and other devices. No, the organic life is the most advanced technology. So our technologies like chips and other, they will interact even in a very tight way in the future with the biological dimension. And we will see next time that even the biological trend, mega trend, is one of the most important even in the fourth industrial revolution. And we see this with pandemic, because the market of biological things and vaccines and it's one of the biggest market today. Virtual reality, I don't want to talk about virtual reality, we can say something. You see, as we shape technology, it shapes us. No, so we shape technology reshape us in a somatic way and a psychosomatic way, connecting everything to everything. And we will see in the fourth industrial revolution the so-called Internet of Things, or also called the Internet of Everything, and then many other points that we see. Okay, just we go back to the subculture and the notion of subculture and the history of subculture. This is from Ted Polemus. This is, you see, the evolution of subcultures from the 40s. Usually subculture in the British in the cultural studies, usually they start from 50s. Teddy boys, mods, rockers, psychedelics, glam, punk, hip hoppers, and so on. This is the history of subculture. From Ted Polemus, we go back to the 40s, because in the US, before the UK, we already see some subcultures. More than defining in an operative way subcultures, this is just the idea. I mean, a very brief definition of subculture is, of course, culture created by a subgroup. And most of the time, this alternative culture limited to a specific group becomes mainstream. There is a process of mainstreamization of subcultures, and this is something that we see. We saw it in the 90s, especially in the 90s, but we still see it today. And in fact, for instance, the Californian ideology, the culture coming from Silicon Valley, from we can say Steve Jobs to Elon Musk too. It's somehow inspired by, for instance, psychedelic culture. So we try to briefly make a short recognition of. In this case, I'm not telling you in detail. I can make a course about subcultures and even fashion. Anyway, this is one of my sociology of fashion. Is also one of my courses in Milan. But here, I just want to tell you about the connection between subcultures and the idea of future. So basically, we see that in the 60s, for instance, the subculture called modernist, was completely obsessed by the idea of future, was completely projected in the future. It was also the so-called space age. If you see here, there are many also. This is also somehow connecting. This Mary Quant. I don't want to talk about too much about fashion, but Mary Quant, the inventor of the miniskirt, but also the French designers like Paco Rabanne, Pierre Cardin, and this was the style of the look of the space age. So we see that in the 60s there was a projection of the future. a strong idea of future, and also was a strong projection toward the future. So the idea of future defined by Motz was a kind of linear idea of future. In fact, there was also a cult of speed, a cult of speed, kind of very aggressive look and very aggressive lifestyle. Usually I make this, I don't know if you can see it. This is 60s. And this is 2000, let's say 15, you know. I don't know if you can see this. I think it's over there. So here, 60s, no, and we see this sort of linear idea of time, you know, the future will be better, modernism, future will be better than the past, and there is a speed, and there is a kind of projection on, as I say, space age, and you know, expansion also in terms of geographical, expansion and so on. While today we are here in a totally opposite culture, let's say 2015, because, you know, I mean, pandemic is different. Why? Because our culture today is completely retromaniac. No, what's the meaning of retromaniac? It's the idea that we are obsessed with the past. You know, according to Simon Reynolds, very popular music journalist, but also, you know, critical. Let's say critical theorist. Our culture is retromaniac. Our music is from the past or is inspired by the past. Our design is, think about hipster culture, for instance, completely obsessed with vintage fashion, vintage design, and think about Wes Anderson, think about, you know, so there is a strong difference between the culture of course, the, let's say, Western modern culture of the 60s, completely projected toward the future, and our idea of future, which is retro future, retromaniac, no? And so it's interesting to compare them. You know, we can also say that I can skip this because fetishism, it's better not talking about fetishism, even if, and there is also the psychedelic imagery, which is it's a sort of evolution of the mode's vision, still the space age, if we think about dolls and the psychedelic experience, also the, you know, the Pink Floyd covers of the, and also the aesthetic. I visited the exhibition in Rome about Pink Floyd. It was beautiful. If you find it somewhere, I recommend it to you. You should visit it because it's a full experience of that period, end of 60s, and the psychedelic perception of time. But here, in the psychedelic perception of time, you don't have a linear vision of the future, the space age. I mean, there is still the space age, but it's more a mix between future and the past. No? So we see a sort of neo-primitive perception of society. Also the idea of going back to the primitive stage, and just to refuse, to reject the industrial society, to reject the modern lifestyles, and rediscovering nature and so on. But then the third notion of the third subculture, better to talk about this before the other one, is the cyberpunk. So cyberpunk is, this is also a very long story, but cyberpunk is, first of all, it's a narrative sci-fi genre. No, it's something, I mean, there are William Gibson, between end of 70s and beginning of 80s, William Gibson, Bruce Sterling, and many others, they are mostly writers, no? Like, yes, just writers of like narrative, as I say, no? And so cyberpunk is mostly this. In fact, this is from, I mean, Ballard was not a cyberpunk writer, so please don't confuse it with the, but it was a kind of postmodern writer. And Ballard, in the introduction to Crash, reflect on the role of sci-fi narrative. And here we see that it's really interesting, this part from my point of view, from I mean, he declared the end and the crisis of the, let's say, classical science fiction, considering Space Odyssey, you know, Kubrick, 2001, Space Odyssey, like going in the wind, going with the wind. No, there is a comparison between Kubrick Space Odyssey and gone with the wind. Why? Because from his point of view, sci-fi is not about future anymore. It's not about galactic enterprises and the idea of exploring new planets and new galaxies and so on. Sci-fi is something related to our daily life. Why? Because technology is becoming faster than imagination, and so technology changed completely our life and our environment, much more than the innovation created by sci-fi writers, you know, like classical sci-fi writers from Asimov, to Kubrick is not a writer, is the director, but there was a representation of the future in the of course in the Kubrick movie, in the Space 2001: A Space Odyssey. So basically, this is something inspiring cyberpunk, completely, because cyberpunk is not anymore about a future projection of our society, but it's the society in which we live, the society completely modified by technologies, by high-tech technologies, in which there is a combination between high-tech and low life or low-fi. The aesthetic of cyberpunk is a lo-fi aesthetic, low fidelity. It's an imperfect aesthetic. It's dirty. It's something that we can see in the confusion of the urban development, in the chaotic integration between different ethnicities, like in the Blade Runner, for instance. It's the clash between subcultures and informatics. Why? Because informatics comes from cybernetic, and we know that cybernetics, according to Norbert Wiener, the inventor of cybernetics is the opposite of noise. Cybernetic is the opposite of disorder. Cybernetic is the opposite of chaos. Cybernetic is negentropic. What is the meaning of negentropic? Is the negation of entropy. Why? Because to make an efficient system, you need to control the information, the transmission information. This is Shannon and Weaver model, one of the first model influencing cybernetic, and it's all about transmitting the message, keeping clean the channel, because the channel is surrounded by noise. So if you want to transmit the message in an efficient way, you should control the channel. And then when you transmit it, so keep clean the information. So this is the opposite of entropy. The entropy is surrounding, is the environment, is noise, something produced by nature, and it's something produced also by the industrial development. While the cybernetic is a sort of like also ecological vision. There is an ecological vision in cybernetics, but the idea of keeping clean the channel and using information to make the system more efficient against noise, against entropy. While punk, and here we see the oxymoron of cyberpunk, punk is the opposite. Punk is noise. Punk is the urban chaos, the urban, how can we call it? Maybe Panos has a better word to define, this kind of pollution and
distraction also, yes.
Sorry?
Distraction, like to destroy.
Yes, also distract. Yeah, it's a very nihilist vision, even if we can discover that punk is also very productive. In fact, the DIY culture comes from punk, and as also DIY culture is a strong trait of the fourth industrial revolution when we talk about makers. So there is also a positive contribution of punk. It's not just nihilism. Punk is no future, for instance, In fact, so compared to the idea of modernism, future, and the psychedelic punk is no future, but in this case, cyberpunk, no future, means not just a depressive dimension, existential dimension. No future here means we are stuck in the present, means presentification. Present becomes the only dominant, hegemonic dimension, so that we cannot imagine the future. This is why we are also in an environmental crisis, because we just care about the present and our satisfaction and our needs, our narcissism, our doing selfies and being cool online and consuming a lot. But so we are stuck in the present. So the idea of no future is also something related to our. Anyway, I said sci-fi. I don't want to talk anymore. But I mean. Gibson, but it's a very interesting, if we compare the 80s, the Sprawl, Mona Lisa Overdrive, many other books written by Gibson, and also the Mirror Shades, which is the anthology, curated by Sterling. But if we compare this thing, I mean, consumption is still there, because consumption, corporations, the idea of, again, the contrast between information networks and the dirt of urban life. But it's interesting to see in the 2003, before I forget about it, the book Pattern Recognition, in which Gibson overwhelms the cyberpunk, but basically he tells the story of basically a trend forecaster. So a girl, Case Pollard, working in fashion and being a trend forecaster. So like trying to analyze the future trends, exploring the cities, finding weak signals and elements to create new trends, or forecast new trends. So it's interesting to see how also the evolution of cyber, it is something that I try to demonstrate in this lecture, the shift of post-humanism from art and philosophical reflection to consumption, the shift of cyberpunk from technology and information to consumption. So they both go in the direction of the celebration of consumption, and this is why today we are still using them or talking about them. Cyberpunk as a street style, there are funny examples here. I mean, this is from Ted Polemus, again, talking about Billy Idol as a cyberpunk, because Billy Idol, who used to be one of the founder of punk scene, especially in the US, with Generation X, a very cool group band. But then he made already in the beginning of in the end of 80s, there was a shift from punk to cyberpunk, and then he made the album called Cyberpunk. So Paul would consider him as a cyberpunk, and then also another band from the 80s called 66 Sputnik. Sputnik, the word, of course, for many reasons. And this band was also considered, British band, if I'm not wrong, was considered a sort of cyberpunk band. Very kind of picturesque band. This is not a real punk, This is a kind of exaggeration of punk, This is a kind of reinterpretation of punk. And then we see punk in the 90s. It's mostly something, cyberpunk in the 90s, sorry. It's mostly something determined by what, again, Ted Polemus calls the gathering of tribes. So we don't have, in the 90s, I interviewed, in 2001, I made an interview with Ted Polemus, and he told me, I was very young. I was still doing my, thesis, writing my thesis. And he told me that it was in the 90s, it became impossible to classify subculture. So cyberpunk was not the proper subculture like mods, rockers, punks, and the other psychedelic, the other that I quoted, was more a sort of mix between different subculture, as you see in this strange image coming from the web. But you see the different technologies, devices, but also you see this guy has a very strange look. It could be a kind of heavy metal or a grunge, let's say, no, it looks like a grunge, and then with different devices, and something very similar is described in this beautiful movie called Strange Days. There are two movies in the 90s that I always recommend. The first one is Strange Days. This is from 1995, which is exactly a movie about this guy. Is a dealer of, not a drug dealer, but dealer of experiences, using like CD and a technology, a sort of helmet similar to some application also virtual reality of the 90s, this helmet. And basically the helmet can detect the experiences on the brain, from the brain, and then recording the experiences on a CD. And so this guy is a dealer, a pusher of CDs. They are like the new drug. And the new drug is sometimes it's very violent and very strong. It's like, let's think about this, sports, very extreme sports, like, for instance, there is a very terrible scene about rape, and the rape is recorded and then sold as an experience, and in this movie you can see exactly what I was talking about, the interaction between high tech and subcultures, because you see the gathering of tribes. There are many clubs, there are many live concerts. Skankanensis is a band playing in the movie, and it's all about also the end of 2000. It's the last year of the last new year, of the decade, of the millennium, we can say. So no end of 2000, end of 1999. So and you see the clash between subcultures and high tech, and it's clear this. So this is still a strong trait of cyberpunk culture. While in the other movie that I said always recommend, it's called Until the End of the World. We see this device recording again our experiences, and also dreams, not only experiences, also dreams, and also, so basically you can transfer and you can show to someone else your experience. So this experiential dimension is also a trait of cyberpunk culture in a paradoxical way, but we see it today. We still see it today. I think we got only a few minutes. How many minutes?
Yeah, like 7 minutes.
Okay, so just to, I think we can finish here, and I continue with, so Until the End of the World is also interesting because there is a connection. This is a part of my next book about, again, future, how future was designed by the neoliberal vision, we can say, because, and so, we were so excited in the 90s to see the future and to waiting for the future, but then the future was something kind of disappointing, and in fact, in the soundtrack of Until the End of the World, you see Brian Eno is the producer of one of the songs in the soundtrack, Until the End of the World, made by U2, and the Acton Baby is the album. And here you have a description made by Rashkov. I think I need more time to describe Rashkov, but it's interesting because Rashkov in Siberia, this is a book celebrating the new culture, and let's say post-human and cyberpunk culture of the 90s, and connecting new wave, chaos theory, network, digital networks, and everything together, again, the cyberpunk narrative and so on. So we see this idea of creating the future, and also Rashkov talk about the techno shamanism. You know, they make a very interesting description about ravers and techno ravers, and the way in which there is a spiritual dimension, and they are based on technology, but also there is the idea of recreating a sort of spiritual vision and spiritual experience. And this is an image that I took from Matrix. You probably remember the rave party in the Matrix, the movie. If you didn't watch it, please watch it, because there it's another Bible of the cyberpunk culture. And here you see that Zion is the place in which humans are still human, you know, against the world of machine created and designed by, which is the Matrix, basically created by machine, but it's the Matrix. And before the, yeah, I mean, this is something I can discuss maybe next time. So just to tell you, we can finish here that again, there is a shift from like posthuman, from a philosophy and art dimension, artistic dimension. It becomes a way of consumption. This is advertising made by Sony, PlayStation, the memory stick in 2001, and you see here, no, it's exactly the celebration of the cyborg. You know, the memory stick is not in the PlayStation; it's directly implanted in our brain. No, so the culture, and we will see how, for instance, Elon Musk and you know, and the pig, no, Gertrude, you know, the pig with the chip implanted in his brain. So we will see how this is a part of still going on of this, like again, Californian ideology, Californian vision. But just to say that both cybernetic and cyberpunk and posthuman move from this more theoretical and artistic narrative, aesthetical dimension to a pragmatic and a pragmatic dimension based on consumption. And this is something that is completely linked to the development of the fourth industrial revolution that I will explain next time. Is it okay?
Yes. Okay. So thank you very much, Nello, for this very informative and exciting presentation. Just to mention here that to give some context, so when Nello says next time, so this next time will take place in another context. So if you want to attend this other lecture of Nello, just email me, just send me an email. Okay, so thank you very much. Are there any questions about that, about what we heard from Nello, or comments, or whatever you you want to share with us?
I think it's very interesting to listen to your lecture, and I hope to listen to the next lecture. So...
Okay, so join, please join. Can I see you? Can I see you, Lee?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. Hi.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Okay, so Lee, if you want to listen to Nello's lecture, just send me an email and I will give you the Zoom link, because it's happening in another context, not in this masterclass context.
Sorry, I thought it was connected, but it's okay.
Okay, can I have your email, please?
Yes, you can find it in, okay, I will write it in the chat. Okay, just a moment. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see.
Great. Okay. So for those of you who want to attend the next lecture by Nello, please write me an email and I will send you the link. Yes. Any comments or questions? Okay. So if no other comments or questions, I guess we can stop here. So thank you very much, Nello, for this presentation. And if you have, I guess it's easy for you to just go online and see all the information you need for applying in our website for the Critical Media Studies program. And if you have any questions about the application process or about any other aspect you would like to ask, please write me an email in the email that I shared to you, or write to the academic manager, Andrei Bulyatsenko. His email is also online. Okay, so thank you very much for attending, and yes, have a great evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.